Hello world! Last time we went over growth cycles and how to scale up our creatures so that it kind of looks like they're getting older and growing up over time. Today we're going to do something kind of alongside that, which is working with morph targets. Morph targets are things that will kind of over time can change the actual look of the mesh. So, for example, when a baby is small, it will have a chubbier body, it tends to have kind of more stubby limbs, big eyes, things like that we think of when we think of baby animals. Whereas adults usually have a little bit more streamlined bodies, they tend to have more kind of stocky, tough, big legs and longer limbs and things like that, and kind of smaller eye for the head shape, stuff like that. And when you're setting your morph targets, this is kind of what you want to look at. So morph targets are built into the mesh using your whatever 3D model software you're using. We can go over something like that another time if we want to maybe maybe make a series specifically for modeling game riggable characters. Quick note, there's a difference between modeling something and modeling a game ready something. Two different worlds, not the same thing. That said, so the baby here, or excuse me, the tentacle guy here, he's got a value over here. If we go to under, you got the skeleton tree, you got morph target curves. Under morph target, we have this value here called baby. At 0, this is the default stage, baby. But if we crank this up, his body changes. So we can all take it all the way down to -1, and that just looks like he probably needs a bit of a diet. But our default is always going to be 0. So if you look at him here, you'll notice that his tentacles are a little stubby. He's fat. He's got these kind of scrawnier little legs, little mouth, little tentacles. And when we move this morph up, notice his tentacles are kind of getting longer and thinning out. His mouth is getting bigger. His body's more streamlined. And his legs are a little more robust. As he scales up when he grows, it's not going to look like his body is shrinking like this. It's actually going to look kind of like his body is still getting bigger. It's not going to look like it's getting smaller. But it will give the illusion that his mouth is getting bigger than when he was a baby. His tentacles are longer, his limbs are longer, his antenna. It's going to give that illusion. And that's kind of what we're aiming for here. So we need this value here, baby. And you'll notice that the max is out at 1. This is important to remember for a reason. I'll show you. You probably don't recognize this because this just used to be the tentacle guy. We're actually making this into a masterclass. So let's back up a little bit. The masterclass here used to just be, this is the base stuff, the stuff that I was like, hey, don't worry about it. We added this grow timer. We're going to do this part later. This is a stamina thing I'm working on too. We're going to do that in the next video. But this is our grow timer, which takes us into the grow function. And it does all of our growth stuff. It checks our stages, and it sets those, and it also scales this up over time. But we have another function that we've added in here. And this is what I put. It's called update stats. So after it does all that stuff, it's going to go call this function update stats. And if we go into here, this is what I have. So this is going to update things like our weight, maybe our bite force, stuff that will expectedly increase as we get older, just like in the aisle. We're going to mimic that mechanic. But we also have over here, it's going to adjust the morph targets. And this is very, very simple. So just like with the growth cycle, we're going to take the capsule component. That's the thing that holds the whole character together. We're going to get it scale. And we're going to divide that. Now here we have it divided by 2 because we know that our max size is 2. And since we need an end result of 1, we're going to take this, divide it by whatever our max size is, and that will mean that the end result will always be 1. So it'll smoothly grow until this hits 1, and then it'll stop, and that morph will work just alongside the actual growth. So the reason it's important to work like this and not just have that number kind of hardwired in there is because we want this master class to work with every character we make from now on. We want this to affect everybody, and we also want it to be very adjustable. So let's say if I made a child character, right? This is my master class. I would make a child character. You just right click and you would have, where is it? Create child. and then you name whatever that child is. So I made a child, and a child class always inherits the code of the parent. That's very important. This means that any code we've written in the parent, we do not have to write again. It's in the child class, every single one. So I have tentacles here. Let's say I made another child class that was called Raptor, a child class that was called Carno, Stego, whatever. They're all going to have that same functionality with the growth cycle and all that. I don't need to rewrite that again. But if I want to be able to customize them, I need to be able to set certain attributes. So for here, in the begin play of my tentacle guy, that child to the master class, I'm reestablishing two variables, max size and stage 2. So let's say I wanted his max size to be something else. It's going to feed that into here, and it's going to just scale accordingly. It's just going to take that code and scale accordingly. I don't have to rewrite anything. I just update these numbers. That's all I got to do. And I could do this one. I could do other things. I mean, all those variables that we had for our growth stuff. Don't worry about the stamina stuff. We're getting that in the next video. But all that growth stuff, all we got to do is just change it here, and we have a whole new creature with its own versatility. Real easy. Alright, moving on. So, what we want to do now, we have our morph target set. We have access from the mesh. We know we need a value of 0 to 1. We plugged it in so that it will grow. It'll make that morph target grow accordingly. And what I also have here, actually really quick, and I'll show you, is this print. This just takes the morph target value, the one that we set over here. It's just taking that value, it's going to print it on the screen. And you're going to see it in blue text on the left side. And we're just printing that because it's kind of hard to really watch the morph happening over time because it is subtle, it's meant to be. So we want to make sure that we're at least printing it. We can see exactly where we are every tick. So every time that growth target, that growth cycle ticks, it's going to print to the screen. We're going to see that. So I'm going to play this. This is kind of a little messy. I'm just tinkering around here, and it's not terribly pretty. But that's fine. It's our baby and adult. This guy is the Raptor over here that I'm working on. He's not ready yet, but he's getting there. And we're going to make our own player character. We're going to run around, and we're going to kind of watch how it grows and how it looks compared to these guys. Okay, so you see that blue text on the left there? That is where we are with the morph target. So look at him right now. Look how tiny and stout and kind of silly he looks. He's just a little guy. But watch him as he grows. Compare him to this baby here. Now look at that baby's antenna, and then look at mine. Mine's a little more smooth, but it's not nearly as smooth as an adult's. And I'm a little bit more streamlined than he is now that I'm a juvenile, but I'm not quite so much. My legs are a little more sturdy, but not like the adult over there. I am growing up. My body is changing as I age. And you can kind of, if you really watch, you can just kind of see it happening as I get bigger. Notice that his body is slowly getting more streamlined. And like I said, it doesn't actually look like his body is getting smaller. It looks like his legs are expanding, like his tentacles are getting longer and longer. He looks like he's becoming an adult. He looks less like a little squishy baby with stubby limbs, and he's working his way into adulthood. Right now, we're kind of like an awkward preteen. And I think we're going to hit sub-adult in a minute here. But you can kind of see it in action. It is very subtle. We could get a little more extreme with it and kind of go crazy, but there are some important elements about that. One is that morph targets are resource intensive. It's a little hard to find information about this. I was kind of going around online before I did this video to see if I could find a good resource to link you guys or what have you, but there's not a lot out there. It's mostly just kind of casual discussion or talk amongst people who kind of focus on optimization and things like that. It's I guess you could say just one of those things you learn through development and talking to other people, especially when you're having issues. But a morph target takes a lot more resources than, say, like a typical bone animation. It it uses a lot. So if you have too many vertices being morphed, or that are stored in morphs, they don't even need to be actively getting morphed. But if you have too many vertices in a morph that is attached to a character, it can genuinely drop, it can kill your frame rate. It doesn't even need to be active. So that's really, really important to remember, because bone animation is a lot cheaper in that regard. Morphs are great for facial expressions or little adjustments to things, but they are not really something you want to use often. Using them for a growth cycle like this, it looks really cool, but when you're developing your game, you really need to consider how this might affect the FPS of your players, because it could really hit, especially if you have, say, 10 people or 5 people in a single area, and they all have morphs attached to their characters because they're growing or whatever. That's a lot of resources being pulled by your CPU. And not only that, but morphs don't work alongside frame rate with your GPU. Your GPU doesn't control them the way that it controls skeletal meshes, the way it controls bone animations. Morphs they don't really work like that. It's more of a pull on your CPU. And so you could see issues like lag problems. You could see problems with stuttering, all kinds of stuff. I mean, possibly even crashing. Who knows? Whatever the issue is, if you have a bunch of characters and you're suddenly getting a frame rate drop, it might actually not be a network issue. It might because there's too many morphs on the screen. And I can't say how the IO works, but that's something to keep in mind, if you will. So all that said, morphs are fun. Don't go crazy. If you can use bone animations, use them. There's another thing we can talk about some other time where you can use something that's called material animations, which is actually a lot cheaper and might be a better option for this kind of stuff. But we'll go over that another time. It's a bit more advanced, but it's much more optimizing, depending, again, how you use it. So we're going to do stamina next, just like how the IO does. And from there, we'll probably start working on cleaning up our movement, because if you notice, I walk left, right, back, forward. It doesn't look great. So we'll clean that stuff up too, but I think we're just going to focus on stamina next. Alright? So that's about it. If you guys have any questions, any comments, well, leave them in the comment section. Please subscribe if you're enjoying the videos. Please like it. All that helps. Like I said, if there's anything that you're hoping to learn about, if there's anything you want us to go over, just drop it in the comments and we'll see what we can do from there. Thank you for joining me for another video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.